Okay, welcome back. In the previous video about copying and pasting, I said I would come back and show you how to put things in the correct order in your colour film. I had a video in the version 8 course I sold on my website, which is still available. The beginners version 8 part course 1 included that video, but I've decided I'm closing my website, so I've decided to put it up here on YouTube, which rather than go through all that again and make another video about all these tools in the colour film. It was done in version 8, but the tools are exactly the same in version 9, so you can watch that. I'll put a link in the description below on how to use the colour film tools. But the one thing I really wanted to teach you that is a little bit new is using the, and I did go into using the travel toolbar a little bit in that video, so I'd suggest you watch that first, but I want to now show you how you can use the travel toolbar in combination with your copying and pasting and your cutting and pasting to put objects exactly where you want them. The reason this might be useful is sometimes you have a design, this one hasn't got a lot of objects, but sometimes you have a design that has lots and lots of objects, and so moving them up the colour film with the move arrows, and if you go and watch that video you'll understand what I mean, can be tedious and tricky. And even with the sequence by selects, if you've got lots of objects and the sequence by colour, lots of objects, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to actually using the move tools to find that you've got them in the right place eventually. So I'm going to go out, I'll zoom to fit first, so 1 to 1. I've made this little design and I've deliberately put the yellow centre at the start of the colour film, but I actually wanted to stitch after the petals. So as I said, if you've got lots and lots of objects and moving, and there might be more yellow objects as well, so sequencing by colour can be difficult. Sequencing by 1, 2, 3 could be difficult if you've got lots of objects. So here's a trick where you can put it exactly where you want it. So what you do is you use your travel toolbar up here, and what we need to do is go out of True View, so hit T on your keyboard or click on this icon here and go to your tulip at the jump to start and end tool in your travel toolbar and select that, and then go backwards, and that will travel backwards to the start of the design. When you're not in True View, the whole design will go black. So now we need to travel through the design to exactly where we want to put that yellow center. So we're going to go through object by object. So we'll go up here to this object. We could actually jump by color as well. So in the last video, in the color film video, I used the object by object. Let's use the color one this time so that you can see how that works as well. So I'm going to jump by color, and so my first color by jumping forward will be the yellow because that's the first color, and if I go into color blocks mode you'll see that more clearly. Okay, so the next color is the green, and as you can see that the objects in the design are colouring, which means that I have travelled through those objects. So I'm at the end of this leaf, which is actually the last green object to stitch in the way I've got it sequenced at the moment. So if I go to the next colour by going forward 1 colour again, all the pink will be highlighted. The yellow is highlighted already, don't worry about that, but we want to sew the yellow at the end of the pink. So what we need to do now, or we want to sew this object at the end of the pink. So I can select this object. So it has nothing to do with the travel toolbar now. I'm going to make sure I've got my select object tool activated, and I'm going to click on the yellow, and Before I do that, I'm going to zoom in because I have travelled right through to the end. So my white cross is here, that is because it is at the start and end of this design. By default, the Banana software makes a point at the centre of the design, which is the start and end. All that means is that it'll go back to the centre of the hoop when it's finished the design. So it won't actually stitch and there won't be a jump stitch, but it just does that. We actually want to be at the last stitch of the pink. We can't move stitch by stitch in the travel toolbar. There is a stitch edit icon here, which allows us to move stitch by stitch, but it's grayed out. And so what you need to do is go into your edit toolbox and activate the stitch edit. Okay, now when you look up here, your stitch edit is activated. You can now use the arrow keys on your keyboard to move that white cross that will be in the center of the green circle back to the last stitch of the pink. So you need to use the left facing arrow to go backwards one stitch. It will need a couple of stitches because that jump is longer than a standard stitch. So just click it. I click twice. You may have to click 3 times, depends on your design. Until your white cross is actually over if you've got your show connectors turned on, this one up here, there'll be a little black triangle at the end of the last object. And when your white cross is over that, you know you're on the last stitch of the pink area. So now I can go back and select my yellow object. So make sure my select tool's activated. It is still selected. Now I can actually cut that from the design with my cut tool, or Control X if you use keyboard shortcuts. It will disappear. Then I can paste it in, and lo and behold, in the colour film, it's at the end. It's stitching after the pink. So cut and paste will work, and copy and paste, it will move it to wherever you have put that white cross. So in this case, the white cross was at the last stitch of the pink petals, and it's moved it to after that, so it's here. If I go into individual objects, you'll see it's right at the end. Now let's put an extra leaf in. So I'll show you how the copy and paste works. So I'm going to go back up to my travel toolbar, and I'm going to go back to the tulip and go right back to the beginning of the whole design. I'm going to also click off so nothing's selected as well. So my whole design, I'll zoom to fit, is grayed out because I'm right at the start of the design. Now I might want to put a leaf, this same leaf, halfway along the stem. Well, let's put it, the first one I'll just put it after the stem. So we're in individual objects, and I'm going to travel by object. So I need to click on the jump by object, and I need to go forward. So the first object to stitch will be the stem. So if I want something to go after the stem, I can now copy and paste another object to stitch after the stem before the first leaf. If I wanted to stitch after the first leaf, then I would move forward one object and it would stitch after this leaf. So let's do it there. So if I wanted this same leaf to stitch after this leaf, I can copy it. So I need to select it to do that. Or, yes, so let's select it and let's copy and paste. It's going to stitch exactly after that leaf, but it's also, because I copied and pasted, if you watched the previous video, you'll know it's exactly on top. So now while it's still selected, I need to drag it off. So now I've got 2 leaves stitching straight after each other. Now what if I want to put it halfway along the stem and not have it jump backwards and forwards? We have in our software a branching tool. So I could select the leaves, all those leaves, and I'm just going to turn off the outlines because that's distracting. There was a black line through there because my outlines was turned on, and there's a black line around each object. So I've turned that off so that we don't get confused. If I now travel to the beginning of the design and use the branching tool, so that I'll show you what that does. So I'm going to select all the green things. So I can go to the colour film and I can select all the green objects just by going to colour blocks mode and clicking on my green objects. Now my branching tool should be available because I've got more than one object selected. So I can click on that, and I do have a video, I think, about the branching tool, so I'll put that in the description as well. You need, when you click on the branching tool, you need to enter an entry point. So I'm going to enter here, and then you need to enter an exit point. So I'm going to exit there. So what that's done is it's eliminated all those jump stitches, and it has actually travelled to the objects and stitched them. The problem with using the branching tool, when you've got a stem that is see-through, open, like I've used here, I've used the back stitch for my stem, the travelling that it puts in to get to the leaves. So let's have a look at the stitch player. So if I click off so nothing's selected and start my stitch player, you'll see that it travels up here, does the leaf. I'll just speed it up a little bit. And then it travels to the next leaf and does that. And then it travels to the third leaf and does that. And then it goes back to the start and it creates the rest of the stem. Let's just pause that. And so you end up with a running stitch underneath your stem stitch. Now if this was satin stitch, that'd be fine, and the branching tool would be the way to go. But because I've got an open stitch, I actually want these leaves to just stitch halfway along that stem stitch, back stitch I've used for the stem. So we can use our cut and paste and our travel toolbar with the stitch edit, or even just use the stitch edit to get to the point in that stem that will be where we want to put the leaf. So I'm going to undo so that I haven't got that branched anymore. Okay, so we can see all these jump stitches everywhere. I'll close the stitch player so that we're not, there we go, it's closed, so that we're not halfway through the design. And I'm going to activate the stitch edit, which has become deactivated, and I need to get to the start of the design first. So let's use the travel toolbar to get to the start of the design. All right. And then I'm in stitch edit. And now the first thing that stitches, if I go to my colour film and go to individual objects, is the stem. And the stem might start, let's see where it starts. Yes, it does start down here. So we can go through with our arrows on our keyboard. So we can go forward with our right hand facing arrow, and it will go one stitch at a time. As you can see, it's coming from that center point down. Now it's starting the stem, and I'm just going one stitch at a time, which is a bit tedious. So we can use our down arrow and it will jump 10 stitches at a time. So jump your 10 stitches at a time until you get close to where you need to be, and then use your forward arrow, your right hand facing arrow, to jump stitch by stitch. Now if I zoom in, my white cross is very close to this leaf. So I can actually, because my stitch edit is activated, I can select that leaf. So I'll go to my selection tool, click off so nothing's selected, and click on the leaf because I only want that selected, and then go to my cut and paste, and it will be pasted back in here. And as you can see, those jump stitches have all gone. The leaf is finishing here, so it may be that I have to I have got one jump stitch from there back to there. So while this is selected, I can go into my reshape tool and I can move the end of the leaf back down to the bottom here. That's eliminated that jump stitch, and then I can continue on through. I'll select and deselect so nothing's selected. My white cross is now here at the end of the leaf, and if I go forward with my right hand arrow, it will jump and continue on with the stem stitch. I'll just zoom out a bit and I'll use my down arrow to move 10 stitches at a time, and you can see it there. This is a really good way when you've got, oh, I've gone too far, so I need my up arrow to go backwards. Right, now go stitch by stitch. This is a really good way to be able to put objects in along something that you don't want to have a travel stitch underneath. So now I'm to this leaf. I can select that leaf. I can cut and paste it. And as you can see, it's finishing up here. So while it's still selected, I'll go to my reshape tool and I'll move that end point down to the bottom. That's fixed that. And now I need to click off so nothing, or go to select and click off so nothing's selected, and continue on to the next leaf. I might get one lot of 10 stitches done. Yep, and then go stitch by stitch. I'm right near the base of this leaf, so I will select it, cut it, paste it, and go to the reshape tool and bring my end point of the leaf down to the bottom. Now, also the start point of this leaf was over here, so I need to put the start down to the bottom too. The start and ends both need to be at the bottom of the leaf to eliminate all jump stitches. I'll just check here, these ones here started up there as well because I actually did the same leaf. So I'm going to go back to those in a minute, but I've now got these leaves embedded in the stem. So I can select and click off. I can exit out of stitch edit by escaping. No, I have to go to the end of the design. That's right. So in order to get to the end of the design, you can either use your travel tool up here and jump to start and end, and then go to the end of the design. That's probably the safest and quickest way to do it. And you are now at the end of the design. Your stitch edit would have become inactive, and I'm just going to go back and fix those leaves to get rid of those jumps there. So I'm going to select this leaf. I need my select tool, go to my reshape tool and move that start down to the bottom as well. And I can select this leaf and reshape and move that start down to the bottom as well. So you can see that the colour film, and I'll just close that little message, the colour film and the travel toolbar can be very useful to put your design exactly the way you want it. Now, and you will see in the colour film that these leaves don't actually appear along the stem, even though they are going to stitch along the stem. I'll select that and click off. There's no way the software can actually show them there. Of course, if you're in colour blocks, they will show along the stem, but if you go into individual objects, they still are not attached to the stem, even though when we run our stitch player, we'll just go zoom to fit so we can see the whole design, run our stitch player, we can see how it stitches along to the leaf, stitches along to the next leaf, and so on. So don't panic that the leaves aren't showing in individual objects actually on the stem, because they are still separate objects. But as you can see, we've got, I'll just stop that. We've got no, get my zoom in, no running stitch along this back-stitched stem. So it looks really neat. I hope that's been useful, and you can do this in the Creator level and the Designer Plus level, and in version 8 as well. I'm not sure about version 7. It's a long time since I've used version 7, but you might not have all those tools in version 7. You certainly haven't got the branching tool. So until I do the next video, happy digitizing.